Okay, good morning. Here we go. So, this morning we're going to be doing a quick review of how to read from a source and then turn that into part of a triad of support. So, this is kind of our reading to writing process. So we actually covered this in week 10 on Monday, and it's called reading for research. So there are a few steps, 4 steps in this process that are kind of relevant for us to talk about before we actually move into doing this process. So the very first thing we need to think about is that we are actually using two, excuse me, we're using two of our different reading strategies here. So what we're doing is we're marrying our active reading strategy with the scanning reading process. So just to recall, active reading is when we engage with the reading and we have kind of a self-talk as we're reading something, and we have a purpose and we know what our purpose is. So we're trying to find parts of the research article of our sources that are relevant to our question prompt, and then you do a close read of the sections and use them to create your citation support. So that's kind of an overview of what our purpose is, what your goal is with this process. So then what we do is we move into the reading and capture. This is the active reading. So you've kind of scanned through the document. You find something you think, this might be relevant for my essay. This might support my main body paragraph number 1 or main body paragraph number 2. So then once you found the section that you like, you read it closely and you can take a few notes in your notebook, or you can print the article and actually do a physical annotation. And then this is a really important idea, that you take your notes and you put them down on the page, because you don't want to actually be looking at the original document when you're trying to create your paraphrase. If you do, there's a chance that some of the original language will bleed into your writing, and that's actually a kind of plagiarism. Even if you don't intend it, you should not be copying the phraseology of the original source. So then we have a couple of tips here for paraphrasing. Obviously, you want to use synonyms for keywords. And then the second point is you should change the sentence structure to something unique, something that is in your own voice. Step C, this is a multi-process step, and it requires critical thinking. And I really think that reminding you that this process, the kind of scan for the good bits, or scan for the relevant bits to your assignment prompt, do your close read, capture your notes, and that's all setting you up for your paraphrasing process, which will be creating your citation sentences, right? And it's also kind of important to let you know that by following these steps, right? Scan the valuable sections, targeting the keywords, do your close read, finding that perfect data, that perfect supporting evidence, and then take notes to capture the page number before you start your paraphrasing. Then you paraphrase and summarize into your voice. And then finally, then you're going to add your analysis sentence afterwards that explains the relevance you took out of that particular piece of the source article. Now you've got this, you're done, and you're ready to carry on with your triad of support. So actually today we're working with what we call an augmented triad. So I'm going to show a source that I'm working with for my essay, and I'm going to do the scanning, find the target section, and then do the note taking. And then from there, I'll actually create and complete a citation sentence. And then I'll show you how to kind of glue it into an existing triad of support. So this could be like when we've realized, I need one more source to finish, to get to my required 5 APA gold standard sources for this research paper. You might be almost done your final draft of your essay, but you realize, I want to get as many points as possible, and I've only got 4 sources, so you're going to try to squeeze this 5th source in. So just a reminder, we use the library search tool to save our sources. So I'm targeting this source here. It's an article called "Of Monsters and Migrants." And so remember, I'm doing the prompt on myths, parables, fairy tales, and how Kogawa uses them in her book Obasan. And so this article here is talking about how many different novels have used, and not only novels, but also kind of political, these days, political campaigns and media even use this idea of using a parable to create some sort of effect in people that are watching them. That's just a very, very brief overall summary. So I've obviously found the article here. I've gone ahead and clicked on it, and then I've downloaded the PDF. And here is the article that we're talking about. So you can see it's a fairly long article, 22 pages. So that would be too much for me to try to read every single word closely. So this is where we employ our scanning tactic. So I've actually gone ahead and done a little bit of work in advance, and I've pulled this section that I think is relevant and added it here. So you can see again, these are the steps restated. We read our APA source with a critical eye, and we use our annotation practices. Those are our close reading and note-taking practices to grab the relevant concepts. Then we're going to paraphrase those ideas. Then we're going to create our idea sentence and analysis sentence, or if those are already existing, we're going to use some transitional tools, as it states here, to sew this new idea into our existing essay. Okay, so here I'm going to move through the reading process. So this is from the original text. I've also included the reference entry here just to show you this is a good practice. So I actually copy and pasted this here, and then I did my indentation. And just a reminder, this is what we want it's almost complete. It's just the wrong font, so we're going to go ahead and change it to Arial. Now we're right in the wheelhouse. It's 12-point font, it's in Arial, it's double spaced, secondary lines are indented. So this is a very effectively and properly created reference entry. And just a reminder, on your essay, at the end of your essay, you will need to have your finished reference list with all 5 sources or more. Okay, so this is from the article, and I'm going to practice my reading, my scanning, then I'm going to focus in on the keywords and take my notes. So in this link between the sovereign ruler, the human seeking sanctuary, and the sanctuary itself is a form of core analysis. 3 novels selected here. Philosophers, Aristotle, okay, good, 21 versions. Exclusion from the city, the polis. Polis is a word for the kind of the popular controlling body of Rome. So there's some connection here to Rome. One of the consensus individuals' political life, biopolitical abject, animals. Okay, here, this is something. The level of animals through dehumanizing metaphors. Boom, we're in the wheelhouse, everybody. So then I'll add a quick note here. Okay, metaphors. Alpha devices. Good. Ban of the wolf. He argues, so this is someone else's concept here. The reduction of human political life to bare life from bios, principle, city, okay, good, consequence. Aristotle distinguished those humans living in Athens from the idiots outside who did not hold any political office and were speechless. Ooh, interesting. This word is kind of relevant if you're doing the prompt on silence. Aristotle thought a person who says nothing is a vegetable. Okay, interesting. Okay, there we go. Speechlessness of the migrant, and recalls myths and literature of metamorphosis from ancient Greek myths to Kafka and beyond. This is all kind of relevant. And I'm just using different colors to kind of make it pop on the page. There's no kind of color coding at this point in my note taking. So then we've got in the myth of Lycaon, as a Roman poet retells it, this exclusion from the city as a community of men happens at the moment when Jupiter turns the Arcadian king Lycaon into a wolf. As Ovid describes it, frightened he runs off to the silent fields, silent again, and howls aloud, attempting speech in vain. Interesting. Foam gathers at the corners of his mouth. He turns his lust for slaughter on the flocks and mangles them, rejoicing. His garments become a shaggy pelt. So we have this interesting, this is a transformation, and it's actually an opposite. This is a myth. So we've got this is really interesting. Okay, deprived of speech while retaining an animal voice. Interesting. So we could kind of, if we were to summarize this, we might say that this is a dehumanization, man to wolf. So this is kind of the opposite of personification. We could almost call this animalization. Really kind of an interesting concept to me, because this is a myth, so it does connect to my theme. Good. So now in early Germanic Middle Ages, these criminals were considered wolves to man. They became outlaws as lycanthropes. Okay, there we go. So that we can now know that lycan comes from Lycanos, that Arcadian king. And the Arcadians were people who attacked Rome before it became powerful. So there's something very interesting there. They prescribed by the sovereignty. In the myth, the sovereign is the god. We're no longer protected by the human community, hence their animal shape, and condemned to the existence in a state of nature. Interesting. So here we're kind of saying that in this mythology, God-like beings are king, and they do not protect humanity from transformation into a base form. Okay, good. So we have some interesting ideas here. Now I'm just looking down here to see what they're saying about this idea. So it's connected to this idea of migrants being voiceless. So that's also something contemporary migrants, if kept in a space that prevent them from going both backwards and forwards, this made space that exists currently, for example, in the detention camps off the Australian coast in which refugees are detained for undetermined period could indeed be described as modern day in the state of paradoxically. So this is quite interesting, the idea that people forced into migrancy for whatever reason, they kind of become animalized. So people forced to become migrants are animalized in camps. And we can see that there's definitely a connection there to the internment camps, right? So there's really some really relevant stuff here. So now that I've got my notes from the actual text, I can start writing my sentences. So I'm going to stop at this point. I'll do the writing just to avoid the shotgun effect here on the keyboard. And then I will show you the sentences I come up with and glue them effectively into my main body paragraph.